Hello, friends. Welcome to Bible study. This is the NIV. I like it for its plain language. Please don't come for me in the comments. I have multiple versions of the Bible. This is the one I prayed with the Lord about what version. He said this one because the language is more plain. We're doing 1 Corinthians chapter 5. Now, I am going to say... this is probably one of the sides of Paul that is not my favorite, but it's in the Bible, so I'm going to read it to you. Just, color commentary. Chapter 5, verse 1. It is actually, this one is called, by the way, the parable is called Expel the Immoral Brother. Chapter 5, verse 1. It is actually reported that there is sexual immorality among you, and of the kind that does not occur even among the pagans. A man has his father's wife, i.e., a man is sleeping with his stepmother. And you are proud. Shouldn't you rather have been filled with grief and have been put out of your fellowship, the man who did this? Even though I am not physically present, I am with you in spirit, and I have already passed judgment on the one who did this as if I were present. So he's admitting the flaw right there. Like, this whole parable is basically him just admitting his flaw. All right? Because what happened to judge not, lest ye be judged? But then this is the guy who, the first time that when Stephen died of stoning, it was game on for bloodshed with him. Okay? Verse 4, when you are assembled in the name of our Lord Jesus, I am with you in spirit, and the power of our Lord Jesus is present. Hand this man over to Satan, so that the sinful nature may be destroyed and his spirit saved on the day of the Lord. Your boasting is not good. Don't you know that a little yeast works through the whole batch of dough? Get rid of the old yeast, that you may be a new batch without yeast, as you really are. For Christ, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed. So it's like one bad apple spoils the bunch, a kind of thinking, and just a different way of expressing the same thing. Therefore, let us keep the festival, and not with the old yeast, the yeast of malice and wickedness, but with bread without yeast, unleavened bread, and the bread of sincerity and truth, which is a contention eventually within the church. Some people feeling that the Eucharist should be risen bread, and others feeling that the communion wafer should be more like the matzah, which is actually quite different. It's not made with regular wheat flour, matzah meal. It's not the same thing. Although, at its root, it still is it's a type of, it's cracker more than a bread. I have written you, this is verse 9, I have written you in my letter not to associate with sexually immoral people. Not at all meaning the people of this world who are immoral, or the greedy and swindlers, or the idolaters. But in that case, you would have to leave this world. I'm telling you, you can't talk to anybody who has poor judgment. The world is full of people with poor judgment. But now I am writing you that you must not associate with anyone who calls himself a brother, but is sexually immoral, or greedy, an idolater, or a slanderer, a drunken, or a swindler. With such men, do not even eat. Like, you can't even meet with them. You can't share a meal with them. You can't talk to them. You can't associate with them. You basically are supposed to pretend like they don't exist. What business is it of mine to judge those outside the church? Are you not to judge those inside? God will judge those outside. Expel the wicked man from among you. So he's sinning. So we must cast him out of the church. I thought it's funny. I thought Jesus was walking around bringing the sinners to God so they could be healed. Shouldn't there just be a conversation with this man about why that's not okay? And, and here's an idea. Maybe actually also talk to the stepmother. Because, there's two people in that equation. And, I don't know. But maybe I'm just keeping with the judge, not lest you be judged. If you were wondering why are inside of churches so freaking judgy and like snarky when they're low energy vibration. I mean, it's not every church everywhere. I don't want to, disparage churches. I enjoy going to a good church service. I am a minister, so basically every day is church here, but I also enjoy attending other church services. Why wouldn't I? Churches have that effect of making me feel closer to God like they do any other minister. I mean, that's part of why you choose the ministry, because you're choosing to spend every day cultivating that individual relationship with Creator, and you're not even trying to pretend. That's the point. If somebody is sinning, why aren't they just trying to have the conversation and bringing them back to the church? This is why some people feel like that behavior is acceptable. And what this really is to me is a very solid example that religious leaders are still humans. They still have flaws. We want to think of them as perfect, and all their words are perfect. And no, we must perfectly follow. And he is in Paul's complete arguments to us and in various letters is trying to say how the Jewish people had that belief about the Mosaic laws. And even if you follow them perfectly, it still won't get you into heaven, because no one can follow them perfectly. There is no perfect human. People are messy, and we're supposed to love them anyway. And he's saying, throw them out. Don't even try. Religious leaders are still human beings. They still have their own flaws. They still have their own problems. No matter how high up they are, they have them. A solid example would be, I'm not sure exactly which pope. Let's see if I can find out. Hold on. So Pope Irving the Eighth, okay? Not all popes, and not forever, and not all of science, telescopes. He banned the use of telescopes because he was afraid that somehow looking at space was going to prove that God didn't exist. He was afraid it would interfere with people's faith in God, which to me is completely ridiculous. He let his fear interfere with God's work. And he was the Pope. So all of the earth and nature and space and everything belongs to God, and God is in everything, and all of science is a study of nature, and all of nature belongs to God. There's no way to prove God doesn't exist. No amount of scientific fact you bring me is ever going to prove for me that God doesn't exist, because all they're doing when the more they bring is sort of proving repeatable patterns. And if there's repeatable patterns, there is an intelligence. I call that God. They can call it whatever they want. I'm not going to interfere in their faith. They don't have the ability to interfere in mine. I don't give a living being the ability to interfere with my faith. That Pope had a fear, even though he was a Pope. He had a doubt. Christ had a moment of doubt on the cross. To be human is to have flaws, is to need grace, is to commit sins, is to need to ask for forgiveness, is a need to swallow one's pride and humble yourself before the Lord or before anybody else. Because I'm going to address an energy that is also, that I don't particularly like, that's moving around through the air with this like illusion. Think of it like I'm an antenna and it's a broadcast. If there is a human being in your life that feels sorry about something, and you feel like they feel sorry about something, but they can't quite muster the words out of their mouth to say, I'm sorry about something, then they're not really sorry. They haven't finished going down whatever spiral they have to go down before they learn whatever lesson they've got to learn. And you can't make that go any faster or make it go any different. You have to wait until they hit bottom and they come say to you those words. Because if they can't verbalize their I'm sorry, they're not going to act different in their outward behavior, and you're going to end up with the same repeating cycle that you've had. It's an illusion. If it doesn't show up here, there's no follow through. Words and actions needing to be in alignment. It's not enough to send the 5D energy. That's never going to work. If you're not willing to change your actions and how you interact with the world in the 3D, you're not showing God that you've learned the lesson. So then it repeats with different people. That's how this works. It's never about what anybody else is doing to you. It's about how you respond to the world. How they come at you is how healed they are. How you respond to them is how healed you are. How healed you are is between you and Creator. You can't sub that out. It's not somebody else's responsibility to figure out all the problems in your life for you to be going to heaven. You're supposed to be cultivating an individual relationship with God. And anybody who's trying to bring you in separation from God in your individual relationship simply just doesn't belong there. And if they can't apologize, they don't have a place in your life. There's no amount of boundaries that you can establish that makes you better deal with disrespectful people. It means that you're healed enough to be able to send those disrespectful people away with respect in exchange for their disrespect. That doesn't mean they get to stay in your life and create havoc or that you owe them anything. That means you get to politely tell them goodbye. Because that's what healed looks like. I'm sorry implies changed behavior. And any human being on earth that you're apologizing to for your poor behavior, you're really just apologizing to God. Because we're all a piece of Him, a divine expression of Him. So to hurt yourself and to hurt others with malice intentionally is to hurt God. And you can't get by with lip service. He shows that repeatedly if you're paying attention in the Bible and actually reading it. The Jewish people got punished in the Old Testament for blindly listening to whoever the religious leader was, whether that was a king or a judge or a prophet, if that person was not healed and told them to do things that they knew were contrary to the Mosaic law, and they did it anyway. You are always accountable for your behavior. That's just what is. There's no way around it. I invite you into this space with me where we try to be the best version of ourselves that we can manage in any one given moment by very deliberately not being disrespectful to ourselves, to the objects around us, to every insect, to all of nature, including every human being. Respond to them with dignity, grace, and respect, no matter how they're coming at you. Because that's the real test. And, whether or not any of us pass it or not, there's not any human being who gets to decide. It's all him. And the good news is he loves us and will give us unconditional forgiveness, so you can always try again. All it takes is one good deep breath, a true sorry to him, and you just keep on moving.